Let's go.
Welcome to the Soul Fam podcast, where we expand your personal universe. I'm Diana Marquetta, and in each episode, Soul Fam co-founder, co-creator Lexi Strummer-Solden and I interview the world's most rising and longtime experts in consciousness, spirituality, entertainment, healing, and science. From Earth's dimensions and dimensions way, way beyond. On the Soul Fam podcast, our frequencies are high and your heart chakras will open as these powerful voices of today share cutting-edge research, profound experiences, and valuable knowledge for your world in this out-of-this-world, thought-provoking, envelope-pushing interviews that could only take place right here on the Soul Fam podcast. Welcome to the Soul Fam podcast. I'm Diana Marquetta, host of the Soul Fam podcast. On today's episode, Melissa Costello of Heal with Horses is here with us. I'm super excited. For those of you who follow this corner, I'm a horse person. A few people know that. And the work that Melissa does is truly breakthrough in working as an equine assisted human therapist. I don't know if I quite have that right. And as a spiritual psychologist also. Melissa works at a few different ranches in Southern California, performing work primarily with women and horses to have a lot of psychological, emotional, spiritual, mental, and physical breakthroughs also. And so Melissa has graciously joined us today, and I am super excited to talk about her message and the magic of horses and humans.
Thank you for having me. I got chills when you said the magic of horses and humans, because it really is. It is magical. Well, horses are magical.
Exactly. Yeah. I feel strongly that there's that horses serve as a connection between sort of earth and sky and between human and spirit. They're sort of our transcender. So that's just my personal philosophy.
Agreed. I would definitely agree with that.
So tell me about your work. Tell us all about your work. Tell us how you got into this.
Yeah.
I know your background's as a spiritual psychologist. You did a lot of work with life coaching, but these roots go really deep for you.
Yeah. Yeah. So I've always loved horses. I mean, I grew up, my mom was a veterinary technician. And so we always had animals around. I don't know what life is like without animals. We mostly had dogs and cats, rabbit, the more domestic animals. And I was always enamored with horses. And the gentleman who she worked for, the veterinarian, his daughter was big into showing and doing dressage. And so I would go to a lot of her horse shows and just look at her like, oh, I want to be doing what you're doing, But we didn't really have, at that time, we didn't have the money for that. And so I took a couple lessons, but mostly it was just like trail riding here and there. And I always just had this love for horses. But when I came to California, it just became more real, especially Santa Barbara, where I live now, because there's a big horse community here, and it's right near the ocean, which is so incredible. So you can work with horses and see the ocean at the same time. And that was always one of my dreams. Yeah. That was always one of my dreams growing up. Is I want to be where horses and the ocean are at the same time. And so, so I spent many, many years as a life coach and nutritionist. I worked a lot with women who had emotional eating issues, kind of mild disordered eating. So I did that for many, many years. And I realized that the work with the horses could really help that process, not just with our relationship with food, but just our relationship with ourselves. And because horses are such a beautiful mirror and metaphor for us in our lives, I just felt like I got certified in what's called equine facilitated coaching, equine assisted coaching. There's so many different terminologies out there now. And I also got my certification in spiritual psychology. So I really use a lot of the spiritual psychology work in my work with horses. So it's just It really is powerful work. There's no riding involved. There's no tack involved. A horse gets to be a horse and just show up as they are and meet my clients where they are. And then that's where the magic happens, as you were talking about earlier.
So tell us a little bit about how the spiritual psychology works into this for both humans and horses.
Spiritual psychology is all about living on what they call the soul line versus the goal line or the ego. So it's more living from a space from your soul, like not making decisions from your ego, not living from your ego. It's very much rooted in what our soul really craves and desires and living from that space. What speaks to us? What do we feel intuitively? What are we drawn to versus this very kind of, the ego really pushes us in a lot of ways to perform and do and be busy and, all of those things to find value. And so the spiritual psychology really roots in like, you're whole as you are, right? You don't need to do anything outside of yourself to become more whole. You're already whole as you are. And anything that you do based on your soul's desires is really going to be in alignment with yourself. And so with the horses, the horses are always in alignment with themselves. They live on the soul line all the time. and so to be with them, they can really mirror to us where we're out of alignment with ourselves. If we get very in our heads or we get anxious or we get fearful, the horses can really mirror that to us in many different ways. They can do many different things and it's just different for every person. So the spiritual psychology really just ties in so beautifully with the equine assisted coaching because it's all about living from your intuition and your soul.
So how is it that the horses are always in their soul? I sort of get it, having a horse myself and having been a rider since I was about 2, but explaining that to someone else who's not familiar with horses, doesn't even really care about horses or have an interest or comfort in them. How do we share that there's this soul alignment and this sort of differentiation between humans and horses?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. And, I think this applies to all animals, right? Because all animals, none of them have what we have as humans, which are egos. So no animals have egos. They don't have that part of themselves that is living in the past, living in the future, living in fear, living in, anxiety, all the things that we experience as humans. They do have emotions, they do have feelings, but they don't have this space inside of them that is always judging those things or always trying to change those things. They're just in the present moment, no matter what. And horses so their hearts are like close to 10 times larger than ours. They can feel us from up to 4 to 5 feet away. They can feel us coming. So they immediately know we're there when we're 4 to 5 feet away. They can regulate to our heartbeats and vice versa. So like when we're in their energetic field, they kind of understand what's happening with our heartbeat from that distance away. And so that's why they're such a beautiful mirror. And that's why, you can tell that they're just so soul embodied, is because even though, they are prey animals and we are their biggest predators, they actually trust us, they trust us and they look to us. We become part of their herd and they look to us for safety and support and guidance in a lot of ways. And so, it's just a really beautiful thing that they're open to us in that way when we are actually their biggest predators. So it's really an honor to be around them.
Yeah, it's an interesting dichotomy. So when you first started doing equine assisted therapy, were you a horse person? Were you involved in horses? Were you riding? How did that kind of come about?
Yeah. So again, it goes back to, I always had a love for horses. I did a little bit of riding, mostly trail riding. I love the Western style trail riding. Yeah. So I did a lot of trail riding. And then I started back in 2017 or 18, I started volunteering at a therapeutic riding center. Oh. So I thought, like, I'm so service oriented. It's something that's really in my soul, talking about these things that are soul aligned. And I thought, like, where can I be of service? And then I was just like, horses, yes. And humans who have disabilities and really being able to bring those two together, and the horses providing this, as you will, service to them, really supporting them. And so I've been volunteering there now for over 6 years. Yeah. And that really got me more entrenched in kind of the horse world and being around horses. And as I was there, I just thought, I need to get my certification so I can work with horses, not in the therapeutic riding sense. That's a completely different modality.
Right.
But in this, I'm a big believer of let a horse be a horse. Don't force them to do anything. And so I really don't do much riding anymore because of that. I've kind of come to that sense inside of myself that I want the horse to show up as themselves without forcing them or coercing them to do anything. And so when I was volunteering and really being around these horses all the time, it just seemed like kind of this natural thing to happen that I would take whatever coaching and spiritual psychology I already had, get this certification and really integrate that into my work.
So a lot of people, if they know anything about this sort of assistance and therapy and experience, think, well, I don't have a horse. I don't own a horse. I don't ride. I'm allergic. I don't like them. I got bucked off, whatever. So how can you share, or do you have to convince people that no, this is cool. Just walk in, be a part of this?
Yeah. So, most of my clients who come do have some sort of affinity toward horses. That being said, I've had people in some of my workshops that did get bucked off in their younger years and never really came around horses again, right? They just thought the only way to be around horses is to ride. That's what a lot of people believe. And so they just haven't been around horses. And so you don't need any horse experience to do this work. You just need to show up, and there's definitely safety protocols in place. We're not just going to throw you in an arena with a horse and say, have at it, right? So the horses are, they're on the ground. They have no tack on, which means they have no bridle, no reins. No, we're not riding them. They don't have a saddle. They're just there as they would be if they were out in a pasture with their herd. And so I'm there, number one, as a guide, and number two, to make sure everyone, the horse and the human, stay safe, because horses are very large animals and they can move very quickly. Luckily, I work with horses that I know, that I've known for a long time. But again, they are prey animals. And so they have that instinct, if they feel unsafe, to move quickly. So I do a lot of education with my clients and just telling them basic safety. I'm always kind of keeping an eye on things when we're interacting with the horses. So no, you don't have to love horses. It's just a really beautiful modality to, if you've done a lot of talk therapy and you've done a lot of, other things like EMDR or, psychiatry or things like that, this is a great way to get out in nature, right? Nature therapy is becoming more and more well-known. And to be around another being that can actually mirror back where we're out of alignment with ourselves. It's just a completely different way of approaching therapy, and really getting to the root of things and being able to have new insights, right? Based on what the horse is mirroring to us. And I kind of guide that process.
So can you sort of share, I realize we're talking this through, we're not showing this, but can you kind of walk through what the procedure is? And then I really want to talk about how our emotions or how our issues pop up when you're doing this kind of work.
Yeah. So just to kind of talk through how it works, if I say I'm doing a private session with someone, they would show up. I would sit with them for at least 20 minutes. We would set intentions. We would do a short meditation. I would ask them what brought them there, what they're really wanting to work on. And usually I ask for like something specific, like, what are you here for today? Is there something that you want to have a breakthrough around? Is there something that has been happening over in your life that feels like a pattern? So we get very specific about things that we want to focus on. And so we'll spend some time talking and doing meditation and setting intentions. And then I sometimes will have the participant will walk around. We usually have horses that we're kind of observing that are maybe in a arena behind us or in a pasture behind us as we're kind of communicating together. And then sometimes we'll go in with 2 horses. Sometimes we'll take another horse and we'll go into the round pen where it's covered and safe. And from there, it's kind of just, okay, here's your intention. Let's go in with the horse and let's kind of see what happens. right? Let's see how this person is with the horse. Let's see what the horse does with this person. Sometimes the horse will walk away. Sometimes the horse will come to. Sometimes the horse will stand in the middle of the arena, and so what it really is about is how is my client interpreting what the horse is doing, right? What are they seeing the horse do, right? If a horse comes up to someone and they're talking and all of a sudden it turns and walks away, I'll say, what just happened there? Oh, it walked away from me. Okay, well, what are you making that mean? It doesn't like me.
Oh,
so
interesting.
Then from that place, I can start to understand. Yeah. So from that place, I can start to understand the person more. Oh, that's interesting. That horse, you took that to mean that horse doesn't like you because it walked away. Let's talk about that. Is that showing up in other areas of your life? So it kind of leads you down this path, kind of looking to the horse as a mirror to what's really happening, or as a feedback tool. They're giving us feedback all the time.
Huh.
And so how am I seeing that? How is that person seeing that? Letting them make their own interpretation and then kind of coaching them from there. So there's a lot of kind of interchange between me and them and the horse. A lot of times just them and the horse. Yeah. So that's kind of how it happens.
So is it that the horse acts as a mirror for us? It acts as, or it acts as a mirror reflects what may be out of alignment for us.
Yes. Yeah. So, for example, if someone is kind of telling me a story and say the horse is standing right there next to them and they're stroking the horse's neck and they're telling a story, and then all of a sudden the horse just walks away. To me, that says, oh, there's something maybe that might not be so true in that story, or maybe not. Like that person might be saying, oh, no, I'm fine with it, when they're really not fine with it. And then the horse walks away and it's like, well, wait, are you really fine with it? Because if you were, that horse probably would have stayed and knew that you were in alignment with yourself. You were telling yourself the truth. But because that horse felt that that person wasn't telling the truth, they kind of were like, nope, walking away from this. The horses want to be with us when we are completely embodied within ourselves. Not that they don't want to be with us when we're not, but they're going to show us very quickly where, when we're not, kind of thing.
That's so interesting. I mean, I can reflect on that really easily I live with my horse basically. Yeah. So I see him 2 or 3 times a day, and that's just an interesting reflection, depending on my mood or whatever's happening and what I may have to do to calm down or to pull my energy down, just so that he's like, whoa, what is up with you?
Yeah. And we did this beautiful, I had a workshop with 4 women this last weekend, and we were in a round pen with a fjord. Her name is Raquel. She's an Icelandic or a Norwegian horse. And she was all the way across. There were 4 of us ladies and me. She was all the way across on the other side, didn't have any interest in us at all, just kind of walking around, sniffing the ground. And I said, okay, ladies, let's all stand here and close our eyes. Let's open our hands and just get into your heart and breathe. And that horse was just we just stood there for a few minutes. I said, close your eyes, get out of your ego, like no expectation. Don't try to will her over to you. Don't try to make it be anything it's not. And as we stood there and breathed together, she eventually turned and came and stood right in the middle of all of us. I have chills as I'm talking about it, but it just was, she had no interest in being with us. And then all of a sudden we all got embodied and we all started breathing together and in our hearts. And she came right and stood. And then she stayed in the middle of the circle the entire time with all of us ladies. It was really beautiful.
What were some of the breakthroughs for the gals who were in do you call it a sacred circle, by the way? Do you call it?
Yeah, my Sacred Horse Sister Circle. That's what this workshop was. Yeah.
So neat.
Yeah. So there were a few themes that came up. One was this idea of overgiving. As women, we overgive and we do it at the detriment to ourselves. And then we end up resentful and tired and exhausted. And we ultimately become the victim of it, because then it's kind of this, I call it a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? To keep us playing small, right? And a lot of it comes from our cultural programming and things like that. So one of the women, there was a horse named Joker standing by her. And as she was talking about this and I was asking her questions, she said, I always have to make sure everyone's okay. Like right now, I'm worried about Joker. Is he okay? Right. And I said, well, what about you? Are you okay? And she said, I don't know. And I said, well, what would you have to do to feel okay right now? And she goes, and Joker was kind of like swinging his head toward her.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, I think I'd have to set a boundary with him. And I said, well, what would that look like? And she said, I got to step away. I'm going to step away. And I said, okay, great. So let's step away. And then I said, how did that feel to set that boundary? And she said, I feel guilty. Right. So this is like kind of this process of what comes up for us. And so what I then did was kind of talk her through that. Okay, you felt guilty. Okay, so can you see how that keeps you in that self-fulfilling prophecy of like, you're giving to others, but then you feel guilty if you take care of yourself. So ultimately, you never get to really take care of yourself. You keep playing small. And so what we worked on was her setting boundaries and starting very small. What she could take with her into the world is, what's one small boundary I can set with people in my life, right? Can I say no to this thing? And just really being okay with whatever feelings came up. If you feel guilt, like it's okay. Like it's okay you feel guilt. It's just reminding you that you're a good person, right? And so I always want to give people things that they can walk away with and that they can practice in their real lives, because that's very important. It's not just this experience with a horse and then you walk away and it's forgotten. It's really about, what did I learn and what can I take forward into my life?
Right.
And so that was one of the breakthroughs, that she had a realization of like, oh my God, I feel guilty actually when I actually take care of myself. Right. So that kind of kept her in that cycle of not doing it.
It's so interesting. I mean, that is a super common thing among women, especially moms and wives. And I mean, just women in general tend to be caretakers, and you can even overwhelm yourself with, oh, I got to do this and I need to take this person and that person. And they're like, no.
Yes. Yeah. That was another woman there. She's like, I'm always rushing around. And I said, have you ever heard the quote, rushing is a form of violence? And yeah.
No.
Right. And being with horses, you cannot rush.
Yeah.
Right. You have to be calm and present. And the reason, what we uncovered is, the reason she rushes is because she doesn't want to feel, she doesn't want to be in any uncomfortable feeling. So she keeps herself busy rushing. Like, if I have to rush to things, I don't ever have to feel what's going on inside. And so we talked about tools and strategies to support herself in terms of like being able to be in the discomfort and be okay with it, and not have to rush away from it all the time or look to these outside sources to change it.
Wow. It's huge.
Right?
Huge.
Yeah.
I know a lot of girls like that, myself included at times. So that's so interesting. So interesting. Did you know this was going to happen when you first started this work?
I didn't. I mean, I've been coaching women for a long time, but the horses just provide an element that is not accessible just through talk coaching, right? Just like talk therapy. There's a whole other element there that is, it's just not available, right? Because there's this other being that's present, that's actually showing us, mirroring to us. And the funny thing is so many people love animals, especially horses, right? They feel like horses are magic, and they feel like, they just want to connect with them. And so when a horse, it's just funny, like it's just a softer delivery when a horse shows us versus a human showing us, right? Like a human saying, you're out of alignment with yourself. I can feel it. It's like, well, how do you know? Right.
Right.
But if the horse is doing it, it's like, oh, different. It's a different experience, a different energy.
Right. I don't feel the judgment. Like I might feel the judgment from a girlfriend or a boyfriend that says you're completely out of alignment with your integrity or your goals or your soul's mission. What's wrong with you? But the horse will just, I'm walking over this way. Huh. So interesting. What have you discovered about yourself, I have to ask?
That's a great question. I think, number one, that the only place I feel like myself and I'm the most present is when I'm out with the horses, like hands down, right? If I'm sitting at home working on my computer, I feel when I'm with the horses, I don't even think about, like, I just am being. Right. And even if I go and like I go to the horses and I'm kind of in an icky mood. Like it magically shifts without even me doing anything about it. Right. Just being around them. And sometimes like, I do suffer from, so have some anxiety and things like that. And sometimes when I know I'm going to see the horses, I'll be like, okay, do your breathing, right? Kind of like what you were talking about when you around your horses and just get into your body, right? Because also you want to be like, if I'm leading a horse in a session with a rider on its back, I have to be very present. I have to be very grounded in myself because that horse is right. It's got a rider. It's got me. It's got 2 sidewalkers. That horse is picking up on 4 heartbeats. So we want to be as grounded as possible and, and calm as possible. And sometimes, I do have anxiety when I'm around them, not because of them, just because of life stuff.
Sure.
And I immediately notice that it starts to like just really settle down without me really doing anything. Yeah.
Did you choose the horses that you work with? How do you do that? How do you deal with the horses? You mentioned before the interview that you go to 4 different ranches. So there must be a variety of horses you work with.
Yeah. So the horses at Hearts are the ones that I know the best because I've been there for 6 years. And so that's where my workshop was. And so, yeah, I mean, I did choose certain horses that I've known for a really long time that I know are very engaged in this work. There's some horses that they're not good, quote unquote, therapy horses because they're just not engaged in that way, right? They literally some horses, they live a certain kind of life. And at some point, maybe they're left out in pasture or they're not really engaged with a lot. They kind of lose that connection with us. They're kind of just like, I'm just going to be out here doing my thing, right? Then there's a lot of horses who want to connect, right? And so I really look to the horses that I know that are connected to the people. Like they're very connected. They're very tuned in. They're given a lot of attention. They're right. So there's always, and some horses, they're all so different. Right. And some are just made for this work. Like they are so made for this work. And a lot of them are retired from riding that I work with too, which makes them even more just available because horses love to have a job. They do. And so this is a really great way for them to be engaged in a quote unquote job without a lot being asked of them. So, so I do choose the horses. It's based on the people, the clients that are there too, wondering like, because I want everyone to feel safe. Like if someone's deathly afraid of a horse and they're at a session, I'm going to pick the horse that I think is going to make them feel the safest. Not some big, huge, we have a Percheron mix there and he's big guy, right? And I'm not going to pick Luke, who is like my heart horse. I'm going to pick little Raquel, who's a Fjord, who's like, really sweet and adorable. So yeah, I mean, they're all adorable, but Raquel is just a special kind of adorable. So
yeah, they all have their own personalities, I have to say. I mean, that's been my experience. So interesting. Is there hesitation? I mean, I understand clients are coming to you specifically for this in part.
Yes.
Do they hesitate are they like, I don't really know if this is going to work?
I think their hesitation more comes around their interaction with the horse. Not so much is this going to work, right? Because if they're seeking out equine therapy, right, they're understanding that there is going to be something there that's different than what they've been doing. I think people do have hesitation around horses, again, because they're very big and a lot of people don't know. They don't know their behaviors and things like that. So for me, it's really about helping them to feel safe, number one, and also just pay attention. Like we did a workshop. Me and my colleague did a workshop quite a few years ago. It was a mom and daughter workshop. And the 2 daughters were in the arena, like these little girls, like hanging out with the horses and the mom's on the outside, like, I'm scared. Right. So we just said, just stand here and watch. That's all. Like, just stand here and watch. And by the end, she was in the arena with her daughter with the horses because we got to meet her where she was, help her feel safe, she got to see her daughter who's 7 years old interact with this horse and realize, oh, she's safe. I can be safe. Right. And by the end, her and her daughter leading the horses together. This was a different kind of workshop we did, but it was just really beautiful to witness. that everybody comes in at different places, and it's really we want to meet them where they are. We don't ever force them. I don't ever force anyone to do anything they don't want to.
What are some of the signs that the horse displays when, I mean, I understand those sort of walking away. What are some other things they display that will show us our own truth?
They can turn their butts to us, like just turn around and put their butt like literally just right to us. Sometimes they'll swing their heads a lot back and forth, or up and down, stomping their feet. Sometimes they'll stomp their feet. Those are kind of the main ones. They do a lot of, when horses are releasing energy or they're very relaxed, they do a lot of licking and chewing and yawning. Yeah. It was funny. I was doing a session once with a woman and she was telling this story and the horse was yawning over and over. And I was like, oh, have you told this story many times before? Like, the horse is telling me that this is a really old, long, boring story for you, that it's time to let go. Yeah.
Oh, how interesting.
Yawning. And the horse I'd never seen this particular horse do that before. And so I was like, oh, okay, this story is, the horse is bored with the story. It's time to change the story. Let's look at a new story.
That's remarkable.
That was really, really cool. Yeah.
Boundary setting. That's so, we just kind of went over that, but I'm curious. I've seen some instances where the horse will bump into you a little bit, not to knock you over or anything, but will bump a part of you or bump something that will show.
Yeah.
That's just a behavior I've seen. I don't know if that means anything, but I'm curious.
Well, I think sometimes the horse does that as a way to teach us to set boundaries, they especially do it with women who don't have boundaries.
Right.
And they're giving us the opportunity to set them. So a lot of women, sometimes a horse is using you as a scratching post, right? Like rubbing its head and they're like, oh, that's so cute. He's, and it's like, no, that's an opportunity to set a boundary, right? Would you let a human just like rub up and down you and, like touch you in ways that maybe are not so like just a stranger off the street, right? Touch you in ways that maybe don't feel good to you. And so even though it's a horse and it's cute, right, it's still an opportunity for us to say like, wait a minute, I'm not your scratching post, right? And I need to set a boundary here. And so that was definitely something that we did with one of the women I spoke about, with kind of Joker swinging his head toward her. She was like, oh, that feels a little unsafe. So I'm going to step away.
Right.
Yeah. So I said, he's giving you the perfect opportunity. She kind of came, I said, what do you think he's doing right now? And she's like, he's giving me an opportunity to set a boundary, which is kind of cool. Yeah.
How much does your work with spiritual psychology, do you see this sort of as you're interpreting, you recognize a problem, you recognize a challenge? Does that all sort of have an interplay for you? Because I feel like you're offering an enhanced service. It's not just equine assisted therapy. There's more to this.
Yeah, no, I agree. There is. And thank you for saying that. I feel like because of my training in spiritual psychology, it really gives me this other foundation outside of the equine assisted coaching, that I learned so much in that training and so many different modalities that I don't know. It's nothing I ever plan. It's just kind of things that come to me during session. But a lot of it is like how we're relating to things, stories we're telling ourselves, where are we kind of living in this in ego space versus soul aligned space, just kind of always looking at our part in everything, right? Our self-responsibility in everything. And a lot of times people don't look at that. They don't look at their part. They only look at the other person, or they blame the other person, or they make themselves the victim. And it's like, well, how are you, right? A lot of people say, I'm not a victim. That's like the worst thing. I don't ever want to be a victim. But ultimately saying that, it's like, well, you kind of are a victim because you keep doing this behavior that puts you in a space of being a victim, And so it's helping people kind of see that from a different lens. And I can I've done so much training and I've done so much work on myself too, in my own spiritual journey, that I'm able to kind of like pinpoint these things and pull them out and say things that people go, oh, I never thought of it that way before. I've never heard it that way before, or so they can really have a different experience.
What was the impetus for your spiritual journey?
Oh my God. That's a great question. Gosh, my spiritual journey started about 19 when I picked up Wayne Dyer's Erroneous Zones. That was the first book I ever picked up so many years ago, back in the 80s. And it just started there. And I really also got, along with that spiritual journey, I got very much into holistic healing. So I became a vegan. A lot of my diet, I turned my diet into very, very clean, very animal friendly. That was all part of that journey too. But for me, growing up, I grew up in a very just dysfunctional household with an alcoholic father. I lived most of my life feeling like I was broken and there was something wrong with me and I had no value. So that kind of is what brought me to my spiritual journey of just wanting to heal. A lot of it was forced by like, I got to fix myself. But the spiritual psychology really taught me like, there's nothing wrong with you. You're not broken. You don't have to fix anything. Like you're a perfect whole being. There's these beliefs and these behaviors that may not be serving you, but you're whole, right? You're a child of God or universe or spirit, and you're whole. And that, like, for some reason, that just hit me in such a different way. I mean, I was reading all the self-help books and doing this and that, but I still felt broken inside, right? I still felt broken.
Right.
And I was just, one of my teachers said to me, like, who would you be if you weren't a self-improvement project? Like, if you weren't constantly working on yourself, like, who would you be? And I'm like, I don't know.
I don't know
who I would be.
I know, that's true. Right.
It was crazy. So yeah, it was a big awakening for me, and just giving up this idea of needing to fix myself and that there's something wrong with me. Like I'm broken, you know?
How hard was that? I think everybody I kind of wonder, especially in this audience, if that's not part of this. And part of this experience at the moment is that we're sort of waking up. I actually feel like we're just remembering who we are.
For sure.
So is that a big part of not only your journey, but what you're sharing?
Yes. Yeah. It's about coming back home to ourselves, right? Remembering, reclaiming, remembering, like all of those things that I feel like, especially as women, we just, you know, and in our world today, right? It's just so crazy with all the electronics and the stuff and the things and the, right? And the influencers selling, you know, all the shopping, just everything, right? It's just this constant overload.
Right.
And then we want to be good parents and good wives and good this and that. And it's just, we just get so disconnected from ourselves and our truth. And yeah. And I have women who come to me like, I don't know who I am anymore. Like I had kids and they're gone, and I don't have a career anymore because I didn't work, or I just went through a divorce. Like I work with a lot of women who are going through these kind of bigger transitions in life, you know, and they're just, they've forgotten. They don't even know where to start. A lot of them, you know? Right. So and a lot of them come to me feeling broken or feeling like they need to fix something about themselves, or, you know, so yeah, it really is a big thing in terms of women who seek out this work. I think that's why they're so called to it, because horses are they're so nurturing, you know, they're so loving and nurturing, even though they're big, you know, a lot of people can be scared of them, but I feel like on some level, like you said it earlier, they kind of bridge the gap between like our being here on earth and then spirit. Like I feel that way about dolphins too. I've swum with dolphins in the wild a lot. And I just feel like it's the closest, right, to God or spirit that we can get, you know? And I think that that's what the draw is. Like, it feels like this otherworldly being.
It's true.
Yeah.
They definitely do. You focus primarily on women. Do you ever do any work with men, or have you ever done any men's retreats? Or is there a reason that you prefer women?
I will eventually. I've had a couple guys be like, hey, what about me? You know, I know that there's a lot of work with veterans that people do. I think it's really powerful to do work with men. I feel like at this stage of my life, I'm working with women because that's where my heart is. Like, that's where I feel really pulled and drawn to. And I think as women, we don't have as many resources as men do. I mean, you know, I think men have a lot more resources available, or they are just seen in a different light in a lot of ways. And women, I feel like we're always fighting to be seen, you know? And so I want women to understand, like, You don't have to fight to be seen. You're okay who you are. You don't have to fix anything, right? Like, let's just get some support here. Let's get the sisterhood going. Let's get the community going. Let's get the connection going. Like all the things that are really important to us, you know? So yeah, men fit in there somewhere. If a guy wanted to do a session, I wouldn't say no, you know?
Yeah. It's just, I'm curious if there's been the guys are sort of being challenged now. So,
Sure.
because women are like, okay, we've had enough, gentlemen. So, they're having to sort out and kind of return to their divine masculine.
Sure.
Also, just is that part of your thinking or part of your? I don't know if that's a space that you're in, but as far as understanding the divine feminine and that relationship between ourselves and horses.
I mean, I think it's more unspoken. I don't speak about it directly.
Mm-hmm.
Just because I feel like women, a lot of women can't even relate to that on some level. Right. Because there's so many other things in the way. And ultimately, if they can connect to that, that's amazing. And that probably would take some time.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like a lot of the women that come to me are so frazzled and so disconnected from their divine feminine. It just feels like such a stretch for them. Right. So I'm going to kind of start where they are and we can work toward whatever they want to work toward. Right. I mean, I had to work a lot on my femininity because I was such a tomboy and I felt like that was my protection mechanism growing up is like becoming disconnected from my body, becoming a tomboy, like all of those things. And so I had to really learn how to be more feminine. And my mom, she was like, God, when you were 2 years old, you hated, like I would put dresses on you. You're like ripping off your pantyhose or ripping off your tights. And I was like, yeah, I don't like wearing dresses. Like I just was never, but I think a lot of that also was just, like I said, protection from my sexuality and things like that I just wasn't so in touch with back then.
Right. It's so interesting in that respect, in understanding as we're sort of remembering who we are, whether you feel aligned with the divine feminine or not, that there's still an essence of this within the work that you do between the horses and women.
100%. I feel like it's very right because the emotional is feminine. It's very watery. It's like, and I feel like the horses like embody that in so many ways, right? The flow of them, and they are they're so beautiful. And even though they're strong, they are very feminine in a lot of ways, Right. And I feel like we need to have like both in us, the divine masculine and feminine. And we need to have, right, those different parts of ourselves and embrace those parts. And I do feel like the horses are like a beautiful amalgamation of both, really,
Exactly.
Yeah.
And do you find that in your clients or especially when you're working in a sacred sisterhood or sacred circle, that it sort of allows girls to be softer? Like you can sort of like put down your to-do list in your phone and your whatever.
Yes.
And just kind of soften a little bit.
Yeah. And that really is kind of that coming home, right? Like the softening and remembering, like, I'm not a human doing, I'm a human being, which we hear quite a bit, and learning how to just be again, because so many of us don't know how to do that anymore, because we always got the phones attached to our hip or our hand or whatever. And we're in that kind of that masculine energy of doing.
Exactly.
So yeah, that's why nature therapy, animal therapy is so good, because it immediately kind of puts us in, number one, a present space, and helps us get connected to our hearts again, right? This kind of like remembering of like, oh yeah, I can feel this. So yeah, for sure.
Do you do a weekly sister circle there? I know you do retreats. Do you do some weekly things as well?
I was doing a weekly sister circle when I was working out of a private ranch. But now I'm just doing them once a month. I will go back to weekly again, but I was doing them once a month. Now I'm doing them once a month. And the weekly was great because I do 4 women and they come 4 successive weeks in a row.
Oh, neat.
And they really built a bond with each other, which was so beautiful. It's, that's where the sisterhood comes in. Like it's more about just the horses. It's about the women coming together too.
Do they have a bond with the horses as well?
They do. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I had a few women that came to multiple successive circles after the first 4-week one was done. They've come back over and over because not only because of the women, but because of the like bonding with the horses too.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit more about what your plans are going forward and how this has been sort of responded to in the community in general.
Yeah.
Um, how have women responded? How has the horse community responded? What do you see happening for you?
Yeah, so it's definitely being embraced. I think people who come more from a riding background, they don't
Mm-hmm.
really quite get it, but it's shifting. It's
Mm-hmm.
shifting. And the Santa Barbara community has been incredible. Yeah, they've just really been embracing it. And, Hearts Therapeutic Riding, they really want to be an asset in this community
Mm-hmm.
for people to come and heal with kind of the horses as the catalyst, right? And so, that's part of why now I'm doing sessions out of Hearts and providing this work there, because they realize what an asset it is to this community. So yeah, the women, a lot of people are responding to it. I have a retreat coming up at the end of September that I'm co-facilitating with a world-renowned meditation teacher and immersive retreat leader. Her name's Heather Hayward. She's part of Unplug Meditation, and she's got her own membership called Within, and it's a really incredible community for meditators. So her and I are going to be co-facilitating a retreat at the end of September in Buellton at this beautiful 30-acre ranch with like all the animals, cows, horses, sheep, goats, mini donkeys, like all the things. So we're very excited about that. And I'm going to be definitely putting some more workshops on. I have another friend I might be co-facilitating with at Monty Roberts' place, the California Horse Center. So we're looking to do something. They're really open to this work now, which is incredible.
That is
And
incredible.
we're looking to do some work there, some workshops there coming up soon.
Wow.
So yeah, I think it's definitely expanding. I mean, there's not probably me and maybe one or two other people that do this work in Santa Barbara. And then, there's nobody really in the other outlying areas. So we really need this in our community. And I'm so grateful that, I get to be one of those people and build it and really create this availability for people to have this experience, because it's so powerful.
Just to go back over a little bit about what are some of the challenges? Do you find grief? Do you find trauma? Do you find overwhelmness? Do you find people that are dealing with ADHD or ADD or other physical issues that might have come up that kind of have a breakthrough in these times?
I think anxiety and overwhelm are two of the biggest ones that a lot of women suffer with these days. And, it takes, as we all know, it takes time to work through these things, but I find that the more they can have the experience of being calm in the presence of an animal and feeling that and having then a reference point and what I call evidence that it's possible for them to feel the calmness, the more that they can then learn to take it into their lives. I use a lot of visualization and like looking, and they do this in EMDR therapy too, where it's like you're looking to your safe points, like who are the safe points? And I always use the horses as a safe point. Like, this is your guardian, right? Like, remember this horse as your guardian. This is someone who's looking over you, who's here for you, who's presenting safety for you, right? So bringing that into life can really help kind of alleviate a lot of those symptoms. Plus anxiety, so much of it we create, like a lot of it's created from our thought process. And then when we feel it, we're always trying to get rid of it versus learning how to be with it and really relate to it in a different way. So yeah, I mean, people have all different kinds of things going on these days. ADHD and ADD are big ones, and I feel like anytime you can bring a person present, that's going to help dramatically, helping them to slow down, breathe, get in their body, just really feel what's happening in their system.
I think it's super interesting to bring up it being a safety point, that it's a reference, whether I'm walking down a street in New York and I feel all of the hustle and bustle or a lack of safety, not being familiar, or even here in Los Angeles, which is a bit of a zoo. So that's just interesting. Or you're in an interaction, with a colleague or something that doesn't feel safe all of a sudden, that you could recall that moment.
Yeah. Yeah. And just really using it as kind of a guidepost or like a grounding tool, right? To just remember and come back into your body. Because ultimately, like, when things feel unsafe, it doesn't mean we're in danger. It just, that's kind of our body's response. So, I do a lot of like nervous system regulation too. And being with the horses really helps the nervous system regulate. And so that's part of working with that anxiety. When our nervous system's dysregulated, which so many people's are these days, we're going to live in that constant state of anxiety and overwhelm.
Right. That state of fight or flight. You must be very keen at recognizing people's symptoms.
For sure. Yes.
Is that your intuitive nature?
Yeah. And also, I've dealt with it a lot in my life too, just dealing with those things, and maybe not necessarily always knowing what they were, back in the day. I mean, it's so much more known now, but yes, I can really sense, I can read people really well and really sense what's going on with them. And I have to work with everyone differently. Some people I have to go really, 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 really slow with, right? Sometimes it's just the person standing there for an hour with their hands on the horse, petting them and nothing else. And that's right. If that's what they need, that's what they need. Yeah.
That sounds beautiful.
Right? Yeah, I know.
Well, for anybody who's listening, by the way, Buellton, Santa Barbara, Carpinteria, all of the places that Melissa teaches and shows and shares are magical, beautiful places all by themselves.
Yes.
So it's worth the drive, the flight, the stay, just to be present there. In addition to your amazing work and the horses that you work with, it's really super powerful work that you're doing. What are some of the remarks as we're wrapping this up? What are some of the remarks you get from your clients?
A lot of people say, I didn't expect that. Right? I didn't expect to have that experience or have that breakthrough. Just a lot of like feeling completely calm, at peace, leaving feeling at complete peace, which a lot of women haven't experienced in a long time. A lot of people in general. Yeah, it just does something to people's nervous system and just, being in this present space. But yeah, I mean, and also having a facilitator help them identify something that they may not have been able to identify on their own, right? Which is what we call a blind spot or whatever. But being able to have that available with the horse being that mirror people are really kind of blown away by that.
Fantastic. So where can people get in touch with you? How do we sign up for the next event? How do we get ourselves to Buellton this fall?
.com. So that stands for Santa Barbara, Heal with Horses. I have a little newsletter sign up there. I send out my events. I don't send a bunch of spam or a bunch of emails. Also, all my workshops and events are on my website, so you can go there. I have the retreat up there, which is at the end of September. So yeah, those are all the ways. And my email and everything is on the site. So you can, if you want to email me, if you have questions, you can reach out to me that way through the contact.
Beautiful. It will be a magical retreat. And I know that the work that you do, people I bet they shift into a whole different presence, a whole different being. Sure. After they've spent some time with you and the horses.
It's pretty cool. I feel really honored and grateful to do the work. It's really powerful.
Amen. I hope that you'll continue to do this and look forward to maybe connecting with you again and
for sure
seeing this in person and sharing some video or something for our audience. That'd be super
cool. I would
cool.
love that.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank
Absolutely.
you so much for having me.
Yeah. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Soul Fam podcast. Be sure to tune in to every episode where we dive into a different rabbit hole of the known and unknown to empower you in conscious living and exploration of the greater universe. We hope you leave each episode with a little stardust in your hair and inspiration in your heart. With love from your Soul Fam.